Hello all, I'm Sai and in today's video I'm bringing to you my November reading wrap-up. November was a great reading month for me and I managed reading a total of 13 books, of which 9 are physical books and 4 are audiobooks. And in terms of physical books, I should say I hit a jackpot because all of the physical books that I read from my physical TBR were just really good. There are like 1 or 2 which did not live up to the expectations that I had. But even with that, they were really good books. And for December and a few more months in the future, I'm planning to pause my audiobook subscriptions and concentrate more on my physical TBR because I have bought a ton of books in November. So you'll be getting an unboxing as well as a huge book haul pretty soon inside December itself so that I can tell you guys what I've planned for 2024. Now keeping that all aside, let's dive into the books and I'll just tell to you guys how all these amazing books were. As usual, starting with the physical books, the first one which I finished is an illustrated book and it is Different for Boys by Patrick Ness, illustrated by Bendix. Now I think this is the 5th book by this author that I've read and I've loved each and every one of so far, including this one. These books are really crude in their nature of expressing the emotions and things that the author is trying to convey to us as readers. He does not have filters at all. He just uses the crudest forms of the words possible while writing his stories and fleshing out the characters just as real people are in the world so that we can understand the impact of what they are feeling and what kind of emotions are evoked in a person when they are put in a situation like this. Now in this one, we basically follow our main character who is gay and he's kind of being misused by one of his friends. And just because he's his friend, the main character here keeps on putting up with all the things that the friend is doing and what all it spirals into, and the end result of it is the actual plot of this book. It is quite tiny and since it has a lot of illustrations, you can read it in like an hour or 2 max. The illustrations are also very minimalistic but super impactful again. One small thing which I felt like an issue for this book is that it has a lot of words redacted like this. For example, cuss words are always redacted throughout this book and that was kind of annoying for me while reading the book. Except that I don't think I have any issue with this one at all and I rated it 4.5 stars. The next one is a murder mystery book by an Indian author and it's an adult book, but I think young adults who are like 16 or 17 can also read this because it does not have any kind of explicit content as such. And the book is Club You to Death by Anuja Chauhan. I've heard a lot of mixed things about this book and I can understand why. In this book, we basically follow the story in which there is this gym trainer who is killed in this very elite club in Delhi. And while investigating the murder of this particular trainer, many things come into light. And there is also so much privileged gossip and spoiled people throughout this story. The only issue that I felt with this book is that it is quite unnecessarily long for such a simple plot and the way in which it is resolved towards the end. And there is also this kind of feeling that the author is trying to narrate the story like some other popular murder mystery authors out there. That was kind of off-putting for me. But as a whole, it just felt super Indian and so close to my heart. I am not from Delhi and I don't speak Hindi, even though there are a lot of relatable phrases in Hindi as well as for Delhi people in this one. So I'm just excited to read the other books by this author because if her bad book itself is this much enjoyable for me, I think her better books might be even more my type. So despite all the mixed opinions out there, I think this was good for what it tried to be and I rated it 3.5 stars. Next we have an adult literary fiction book and it is also super beautiful, okay, in terms of the cover art, and the book is Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellors. Now this is one book which I had really high expectations for and I should say that it met most of them really well. The one thing which did not work out for me was the backdrop of this book and how everything was related to sex and drugs and just not a happy mood as a whole. Apart from that, everything about this book was really nice and especially the writing of the author was just perfect for the kind of story that she's trying to tell. Here we follow Cleo who's in her 20s and Frank who's in his 40s, meeting on a New Year's Eve and just hitting it off. And just a few months after they meet, they end up marrying each other, and how this snowballs into a huge mess is the actual plot. It was really fun and there was a lot of different kinds of representation in this book which just felt so wholesome. And I really loved the ending of the book and the tone in which the author addressed this issue properly. No relationship is easy to maintain and we cannot always put the blame on one single person for all the problems that might come inside a relationship. And the way in which the author addressed that properly to us in this book was really nice. If you are in the mood for a sexy book, you should definitely try this one because it is not unnecessarily sexy. At the same time, it hits all the points properly. Just for the backdrop or the setting alone, I rated it 4 stars and not 5. The next one is a huge behemoth of a book that I started reading in April, was not able to finish back then and put aside for a few months and finally picked up in November, listened to the audiobook and finished at last, and the book is Two of Sand by Gitanjali Shree, which is the International Booker Prize winner for 2022, which is last year. I bought this book just because it was available at a great deal, and I personally like Booker Prize winners because the writing of all these books is always awesome, just like in this one. But there is this huge problem with this book, and it is that it is very, very meandering. Okay, I'm okay with meandering writing, I'm okay with slow-moving stories and a great character build-up, but when you stray away from the story for most part of the book, it just annoys me so much. Even though the writing of the book is great, the story as a whole is just really exquisite, and the main character whom we see here being an old woman in her 80s, all those things were really, really well done by the author. But the extent to which the book went out of the story or the plot in order to just address certain things and not even address certain things was too much for me. The length of this book in this edition is 725 pages, and I can easily say we can cut down 500 pages and tell the story within 225 pages very, very easily. So just think about the extent of unnecessary things that are added for the story. Okay, I can understand that all those things are not unnecessary, but parts of the book which the author has tried to address, sometimes casually and sometimes really strongly. But I don't think for a book to be considered to be a good book, there needs to be this much extra fitting attached to it. We could have stuck with the main plot alone and progressed on with the story of the old woman and her friend and her daughter alone, and I think that could have just boosted up the level of this book to much more than what it is. It's just my personal opinion. I can understand why it has won the award and all the things that might have gone behind it, because this is not an easy story to tell, and all the things that the author addresses are not simple things to just put forward in words inside a book. And more than anything, it's a translated work. It's translated from Hindi to English by Daisy Rockwell, and I don't think the original Hindi edition is this big. So something has happened in the translation where the translator has decided to extend a bit of stuff. And another annoying thing for me about this book is that the story, the actual story, starts happening only after 350 pages or so of the 725 page long book. So I'm definitely not okay with it, because even though I like flowery writing, even though I like beautiful prose, I cannot wait for half a book for the story to just start happening. So that was definitely annoying for me, and because of all these reasons, I ended up rating this book 3 stars. The next book is an end to a YA fantasy series, and it is Gods and Monsters by Shelby Mahurin, which is the last and final book inside the Serpent and Dove trilogy. Now, some of you guys have been asking me to read this trilogy ever since 2021, and I finally picked up the trilogy just last month in October, and I read the first 2 books back then, and I read this one in November. I should say, of all the 3 books inside the series, this is the worst. I don't think the author worked enough to write this book, because it does not feel like a proper ending for a story at all. And there's this huge chunk within which a main character inside the story forgets certain things that have happened so far inside the series, and that happening in the last book of the series was super annoying for me. And there are also certain characters who just felt like they need to be there here and there just in order to move the plot forward and for no other reason. The second book also had some plot conveniences like that, but I don't think they were as bad as they were in this final book. I personally think there could have been a lot more editing done for this book, and the author could have found multiple different ways to end this story far better. So this was quite disappointing, and I rated it 3 stars again. So to break the spell of the past 2 books being not that great, I read this amazing memoir or non-fiction book, which was just out of the world personally for me. Okay, it was a book which I personally connected to a very great extent because of certain personal experiences from my life. And the book is Cancer, You Picked the Wrong Girl by Shormistha Mukherjee, in which the author talks about her story regarding breast cancer, how she was diagnosed with the disease and all the repercussions of it, the treatment, the recovery, and what all things happen during cancer treatment and how it needs to be diagnosed, what all will happen when a person is in treatment, and all such things. I've said this already 1 or 2 times before the channel. My mother is a cancer survivor, and while reading the story of this woman, it took me back 10 years in my life and made me remember some of the hardships that we faced as a family together just in order to be there for the person who was affected by the disease during that time. It also shows us how much money is important in order to even get proper treatment for such a deadly disease, even though many people are being affected by it, and along with being affected by it and experiencing all that huge trauma, they also have to go through this financial burden. This book just felt like something that was a huge sign of gratitude or a huge gesture of gratitude by the author, written in the form of a book, and the writing of the author is also just top notch. Okay, I'm saying all these powerful and strong things about this book. Despite all that, it is very light-hearted in its tone because the author has a really humorous way of writing her own story. She does not make unnecessary jokes and tries to make hard situations sound easy. At the same time, she does not give up her original character of being humorous and just keeping life light in its tone. I need to say this book impressed the hell out of me, and I will keep on recommending it many times in the future. So if you have not read this book, please go forward, grab a copy and read it, because stories like this one need to be read by so many more people so that we can make even more people aware and normalize the fact that it is also a disease which can be treated with the help of effort and support from the people who are surrounding a person who's being affected by it. It was just mind-blowing for me and I rated it 5 stars very easily. The next one is another non-fiction book. I read all these as part of the non-fiction November thing that happens on BookTube. And this book is a self-help book, which is very tiny. Again, it's just under 200 pages long, I think. And it's by a super popular author inside the self-help genre, especially when it comes to content creation and business as a whole. And the book is 12 and a half by Gary Vaynerchuck, or Gary B, as many people like to call him. Now, he's the author of Crush It and Crushing It, which are huge phenomenon when it comes to understanding social media and search engines in order to optimize your brand and your business better in the internet. In this book, the author basically focuses on what all kinds of human abilities, traits, and talents we need to develop as a person in order to become a good businessman rather than just being financially successful in every way possible. It just felt super empathetic coming from such a person who is very huge in their own industry. And it is also super on the face and straightforward about all the things that the author wants to say to us as readers. There are also a lot of situations that the author concocts for himself and gives us ideas of how we can handle them when or if we face them in our own lives. Again, it was a very interesting and motivational read, so I rated this one also 4.5 stars. The next one is again another self-help book, and this is also by an Indian author. The book is The Magic Mindset by Preeti Shenoy, in which the author basically talks about developing a very positive attitude and positive mindset in order to achieve what all you want in life, because this is not a book which is very hard in its tone at all. It is very lightweight and everything that you read from here can be easily practiced by you. At points it felt like the author is coming from a place of privilege and she's not taking into consideration that all the things that she talks about might not be possible for everyone out there to do. But when I dived in deep and read more about the book and some of the underlying tones that the author is trying to express through her lines, I was able to understand that this is not something that comes out of privilege, but just understanding and experience from age, as well as a lot of different kinds of work that the author has done. Again, it was a wholesome book, and if you're someone who's struggling with low mood or if you're feeling depressed in a low-key way, you need to try this book, because while I was in a good mood itself, this book felt super positive for me. And if you're not in that great a mindset right now, I'd suggest you to go forward and try this, because it will definitely not be a waste of time and it will motivate you to get yourself back in the game and just live life for yourself rather than just competing with anyone else. As a whole, this felt like a breath of fresh air, and I rated this one also 4.5 stars. The last physical book is kind of a horror / psychological thriller book. You need to read the book in order to find the actual genre of it. And it is again an Indian book, which is Batshit by Kritika Kapoor. In this book, we follow our main character, Pia, who's kind of considered as a weirdo in her inner circle. And there is this particular day in which her younger sister gets married, and during the day of her marriage, something really bad happens to Pia. And 2 to 3 months after that, Pia's life completely changes, and the way in which people see her totally becomes different, because the kind of job she has, the kind of life she lives, and her physical appearance itself becomes super glamorous and jealousy invoking for so many people. But Pia only knows what kind of deal that she has made with the demon that she's housing inside her in order to get this proper life that she actually wants. The author keeps on making you doubt and question whether she's actually possessed by a demon or if she's psychologically affected in some way because of her childhood trauma. And only when you reach the ending of the book, you're able to understand what has actually happened to her. Now, the good thing about this book is that it is very, very creepy and super eerie. So the perfect time to read it will be this month, December. It'll be super cold out there, so go forward, grab a blanket and read this book. You'll be able to feel all those vibes properly. It'll give you chills actually. And the bad thing about this book is that it did not feel Indian to me, even though the book happens in Delhi. All the characters we see here are Indian. They have born and grown up in India. They are very close to our culture, but it felt like the author just wanted to tell us this very glamorous, sexy story that has a super gothic, eerie vibe to it. So that aspect of it felt really unrealistic to me, despite it being fiction. So I rated this one 3 stars. Now moving on to the audiobooks. The first audiobook which I finished is kind of a dystopian apocalyptic book, and it is also one book which happens in imaginary Delhi. The book is Zombistan by Vaynerchuck. I've heard really great things about multiple books by this author, and when I finally found out this was available in Storytel as an audiobook, I just went forward and listened to it. The book is also not that long. I think it's just around 6 or 7 hours, and it just felt wonderful for the day in which I listened to the audiobook. This is basically just like an Indianized version of I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. It felt exactly like that to me. The basic plot of the book is that there is this huge terrorist attack that happens in another part of the world, because of which this zombie virus gets created out of nowhere and affects all the terrorists who are actually dead. And those who are dead turn into zombies and come and try to affect all the other people so that they can take them also inside their own control. It's basically like any other zombie plot, but the basic difference is that the story happens in India, especially inside Delhi, and they also travel from Delhi to Ladakh for certain reasons. Also keep in mind that it is not just India that is affected by the zombie virus, but the entire world. The author has executed the plot really well, but it just felt very basic to me because it felt exactly like I Am Legend by Richard Matheson and nothing different. But as a whole, it was fun to read and it gave me proper kinds of zombie story vibes, and I'm pretty sure that I'll be checking out some of the other books by this author as well. So I rated this one 4 stars. The next one is another book by Preeti Shenoy, which is 100 Little Flames. This is the only fiction book by the author that I read in November. I read another non-fiction book, which I'll be talking about in just a few more minutes. Now in this book, we basically follow our main character who has lost his job while working in Mumbai for this huge corporate IT firm. And after losing his job, he comes to Kerala to his grandfather's house and he stays with him in that house in order to take care of him for a few days. He does not have a good relationship with his father and mother who are living in Bahrain. Now he was born and brought up in Bahrain only, but just for working he came to Mumbai because he get this job via his father. And his father is a very unpleasant person who's very much similar to a lot of people who we ourselves see in the society nowadays. It is basically about the main character's grandfather's past and his love story as a whole. More than a love story, I can say that it is a beautiful friendship story that might look like an illicit romance for people from outside while they don't know everything that is actually going on inside the relationship. I cannot give away more about this story because it will spoil it, and in order to understand and enjoy it completely and properly, you need to go forward and read the book and read the story. It is quite long. I think the audiobook was 12 or 14 hours long, but I did not feel like I was bored at any instant at all because it was just perfect. It was super heartwarming and it made me cry towards the end because it was super impactful as an entire story. If you want to read a wholesome book, you need to try this one, and I easily rated it 5 stars again. The next one is a vampire classic, and it is Carmilla by J. Sheridan Leofano, if I'm not pronouncing the author's name wrong. I think it was originally published in French and then translated into English. I listened to this one as well as 100 Little Flames in the Audible Plus catalog. So if you're having an Audible Plus account and if it is running right now, you can listen to this part free in the subscription itself. This is basically just about this she-vampire in Austria who comes and haunts this little girl, not a little girl but a teenager, and what all happens from that. It just gave me the perfect kind of vampire story vibe. I was not going in with much expectations into this one because I know that the story is old. It was published back in the 1800s, so it's definitely old. But the language of the book is not very difficult to understand. I think it's because of the translation. It gave me the perfect kind of vibes that a vampire story should give. And again, if you read this during the winter time, which is happening right now across the country, I think you'll be able to enjoy it a lot more. I like the vibes of this book more than anything and the signature things when it comes to vampire fiction. So I rated this one 4 stars. The next one is yet another non-fiction book. It felt like a collection of essays than just a non-fiction book for me, and it is Why We Love the Way We Do, again by Preeti Shenoy. This is the last book in this list, and I can easily say, after reading these 3 books by Preeti Shenoy in just a single month, I have easily become one of her fans because I just love the way in which she talks about relationships and all the complexities that come along with it. Not any relationship that we have in our life is completely good and completely bad. All of them have grey shades, and us trying to explore them and accept the people who are in that relationship just as they are is really wonderfully explored by this author's writing. I want to read all of her other books also, especially her fiction works, because I like the way in which she plays with relationships and friendships and shows us the true colors of what a relationship is for people who are actually involved in it compared to the people who are outside it. Now, just as the title of the book suggests, the author basically talks about why we love the way we do. It talks about the influence of mass media and cinema when it comes to influencing our ways of seeing love and how we express it towards people, the different kinds of love that we express towards different kinds of people, and so many other such things. If you're someone who is interested in reading books about relationships, you should definitely go forward and try this. Again, it's just 6 to 7 hours long and it's totally worth all the time. It had certain things which were repeated in some of her other books too, but as a whole, I liked this one and I rated this one also 4 stars. So yes guys, those are all the 13 books which I managed to read in November, and it was an amazing reading month for me. I just hope that December is also going to be a good month because I started with a very strong book. At the same time, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell icon so that you can see the book haul videos and the unboxings that I'm going to bring for you in just a few more days, because I have a ton of books that I need to show to you guys before the end of the year so that you get an idea of what I'll be reading in 2024. And if you want to read them along with me, you can also go forward and purchase your own copies. I hope this video was useful for you and you got some value out of it. If you did enjoy watching it and found it helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. And if you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.